Welcome back to the second half of episode 3, where we're going to talk all about retracts. And in this first part, we're going to display how the mechanical retracts get installed and how that servo that controls those retracts get installed. So here's my brushless high-tech servo that I have installed in the mounting plate, and you can see that there's two tabs, a longer tab and a smaller tab. For this to go in, you need to fish the servo wire through and then orient the servo mounting plate so that small tab is facing the mounting plate of the landing gear, as so. And that small tab goes in first, and then you slide the plate back. Now, depending on your servo, you might have where the servo wires come out. In this case, there's a grommet there, and at first I thought this was never going to work, but good thing is with these high-tech servos that those grommets are pretty malleable, and you can really kind of get a good bend in there. And actually, after it's in, and you'll see the servo wire is not constrained at all. It's just for the process of sliding it in there. So that servo plate has to slide in. You see that big notch goes in to the rib, and that has to go all the way back for this locking plate to kind of lock it in there. And this has two sides, a flat top, and the bottom is actually rounded just barely. You'll be able to tell, you might not be able to see in the picture, but you fish the wire through, and that rounded spot has to go against the top of the wing sheeting, and in this case the bottom, because the wing is upside down. But it goes on the end there, goes over that notch, and then there's a bolt that you can tighten it. And in fact, you can finger tighten it, but then to really tighten it, you can get a tool in through the root of the wing to tighten that down. So here is the servo mounted. I'll just connect. I had already run a servo extension cable through, and I'll connect this up and show you how the wires are run after everything's in place. So there you go, all the wires are completely out. So here is a close-up of the retracts. The base is nice aluminum, and the struts themselves they don't look as nice. So I think some people would say they're kind of pot metal. And in the last episode, I had mentioned that they're oleos, and I don't know if oleo is the right word. There's nothing sealed, it's just a spring, and that piece there, the whole thing moves up and down. Do you notice anything funny in this picture? I did not notice that they had left two holes out when I took that picture, so I needed to go over to the drill press and measure and make some holes, and that was not a problem at all, because just going slow, I was able to go through that aluminum pretty nicely. All right, so here is the retract, and pretty self-explanatory. It goes in, and I've already drilled. One of the things that adds to the frustration of the mechanical retracts is because everything is together, the gear door mounting brackets slide up and down, and it might look like there's a pretty good amount of room. I can reach in there with my hands and manipulate things. But if you see here, when you're setting things up, you have to be careful where those gear door mounts slide. Will it hit the servo? Will it hit the linkage and everything? It's just kind of a nightmare. It's not the end of the world, but it kind of adds to the frustration of setting up these retracts. It's a great design, I guess. It works. There's just you have to take some time and patience to get this set up, and you can tell I did adjust my servos. I actually programmed this servo and got the linkage the right way, and had it actuating, and I just felt like I wanted to go with the electric retracts. So in the end, I think these will work. These will be fine. It will take you some time to get these set up and working exactly as you need. So here are the gear doors, and they are substantial. I didn't get a chance to weigh them. If I do, I'll let you guys know. But it's funny, from my last series from the Hughes H1, I sort of was joking about how the gear doors for that were just flimsy plastic. And then go from that to this, where these are, they almost feel like there's some sort of metal in there. I don't know if they're really heavy plywood, or I don't know if they're G2, but they are heavy. So that's a good thing. So right here, I'm going to mount those gear doors onto the struts. Pretty self-explanatory, so we'll speed this up here in a second. So as I sit the gear door down, in the last episode I mentioned that it doesn't sit flush. So you can see that there's already, it's not in the wheel well, it's sort of on top, and the gear is all the way retracted. It can't go down further than that. And that's sort of what I was talking about. It's not really a matter of cutting the sheeting to get it to fit. It's a matter of the fact that the gear is all the way retracted, and there's nowhere for that gear door to kind of sit flush. So just want to let you get some good visuals on what this looks like. And as you can see, the gear door is kind of rotating before I tighten everything in. So this is where you would kind of see the overall fit. You can, before you tighten things down, you can slide it up and down to see exactly where it should fit in relation to the gear door and the retract itself. So this is me just fiddling around, trying to get locations and see where I want it to, where exactly I want to be, and the angle that it sits when it's retracted. And that's where I'm kind of pointing out, look, the gear's all the way retracted. It can't go down anymore. And that's where the gear door sits. So I like it right where it is. So I'm going to tighten these bolts here. And you can't really tell from this angle, but I'm trying to keep the gear door as level as possible with the wing, and that means that there's a slight angle to the wheel. And the one thing I didn't notice, I'm going to be talking about the electric retracts coming up, is we're going to have to align the wheels with the electric retracts the way that the axle is mounted. But I noticed in this footage, and I didn't notice this until after I filmed it, but the wheel is aligned perfectly with that black stripe on the wing. Now the retracts come aligned from the factory. You don't have to add the strut. So it was just interesting to see that, oh wow, the wheel is aligned to that black stripe. So is that black stripe perfectly aligned for where the wheels are? It's something we're going to look into as we go forward. So the last step, after you've gotten the gear door exactly where you want it in the position that you want it on the strut, there are grub screws on the mounting brackets that you can tighten with a 1.5 millimeter driver. And that's it for the mechanical retracts. So let's move over to the electric retracts from Legend Hobby, the high marks, and they're a little bit less substantial. You are sacrificing the spring in the mechanical retracts, and I know I had called them oleos, but there's no oil, there's nothing sealed. It's just a spring, and the electric retracts come with a separate axle that the wheel mounts to as so, but we'll mount that after we get this installed. So I'm measuring 4 millimeters from the end of the mounting plate to match what I did on the other wing. And as I hold it there, I'm going to use, the holes in the retracts are 4 millimeter. So I'm actually going to make a really shallow pilot hole with a 4 millimeter bit just to establish that center. And then I'm going to switch over to a 3 millimeter bit to then drill all the way through. Now, as I'm drilling, I wanted to talk about, if you saw with the mechanical retracts, the bolts that they have for those are Phillips head, and they are a nightmare, especially you want these tight. So I didn't really enjoy using those, so I went out and found socket head wood screws, and actually M3.5 by 25 millimeter socket head cap screws for wood or self-tapping from Parts Express, and the link for those will be in the description. And here is one that an example of one, and they are much easier to drive in here for the Retracts. And here's a package, a picture of the package from Parts Express. Much easier to use. So we'll zoom out here and we'll speed things up, and here's me driving that socket head wood screw. And I'm just establishing one in here to kind of keep it in place, and then hand tighten with a regular tool, 3mm tool. So again, just doing really shallow 4mm holes to establish that center point for the 3mm drill bit, and this is where I'm going to drive all the way down. And right here, when I'm doing this, my mini drill is running out of battery, and you can hear it straining, and I'm like, all right, please have enough battery to get through this shot. But so I drill the diagonal bit bolt, and now the retract is in place, and we just drill and mount the rest of the bolts. You can hear that drill straining, but made it. We're good. And we'll put in the last two socket head wood screws. And again, hand tighten with the regular driver. All right, so I have already run an servo extension wire and wanted to show you where the wires get routed through the same place as is the case with the mechanical retracts, to kind of keep that wire out of the way. And I have it connected up to the high-tech servo tester, and bada bing, we have action on the electric retracts. So here's the gear door, same gear door obviously, but the kit comes with additional mounting brackets for the new strut. And in fact, in the first part of the video, I used the wrong 3mm bolts. You're supposed to actually use the rounded head bolts for these. And it is important to see that these mounting brackets for the doors, there's 4 of them, 2 for each side. They're all the same, but they're drilled in a way that the bottom one needs to be with the edge closest to the gear door, and the top one needs to be with the edge furthest away, and for the angle of how the gear door sits. And you can see how this is installed here. So once these are mounted, you can just slide it over, and now you have the gear door added. So here's the wheel on the axle, and you have to get it on there and set it about where you want it and tighten the bolts. I think I got a pretty good location on the first try here, but you know, don't use Loctite, don't lock anything down until you make sure everything fits. And you can see here that I want to slide the gear door down a little bit. I wanted to show this because I wanted you to be aware that you're going to have to keep things loose. Retract the gear a few times to get everything fitted. That looks better. And in fact, it looks like the gear door sits a little bit more flush with the electric retracts. So that was a pleasant surprise. And then finally, the last step, as in with the other gear doors, there are grub screws to really lock in those mounting brackets, and you just tighten those with a 1.5mm driver and you're good to go. And so here are the electric retracts, pretty self-explanatory. Keep things loose until you get everything exactly fitted the way you want, and then blue Loctite everything around here. I'm going to explore a little bit with the alignment of the wheels, but I'll have more information on that coming up. So Thanks for tuning in to the second half of episode 3. I'm not sure where we're going next, but I'll keep you updated. We're going to basically follow the manual, and so we'll see you in a few days with the next steps of the Seagull Perestroika.